Alrighty.
Yeah, I can see you live.
Okay, we're finally live. That's great. Mhm. Okay. Okay. Ready?
Yep, I can see that we're live now. Everyone, hi.
Okay. Welcome to Say It With Love, our podcast where we discuss relationships, education, and the mindset. It is everything that you and I are figuring out this lifetime. And if you probably got it all figured out, but for some reasons you might have thought, you probably have not gotten all figured out because life is a journey. Now, my name is Frederick, and joining me is my amazing co host, Eunice. We're educators, and in this episode, we discuss a particular proverb which some of you might have heard before. It's called Your Attitude Determines Your Altitude. It's by Zig Ziglar, and I believe most of you or many of you have heard about this, but if not, we're going to discuss about this proverb, this saying that your attitude determines your altitude right here in our episode. So um, let's begin. With regards to this particular proverbs that we're talking about, like, does attitude really determine your success in education and life? And now that's one important question that we're talking about for this episode.
Yep, I think it's so important because this is the it is so important for youth or for young students, even for adults to know about themselves, whether attitude, how important it is, and to have this self awareness so that they are better at navigating through school, relationships, and even careers, right?
Mhm.
So the question is it a myth or is there a truth in this saying?
Myth or not? Yeah.
Mm.
Interestingly speaking, I mean, we're talking about attitude. It's a lot of connotations with regards to attitude, and
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but personally, I feel that attitude is something got to do with the perspective of what life is about and the perspective of what the world is about to you, to every person's subjective experiences. And of course, if you're talking about attitude, it's a product of something that preceded, like the way you're brought up, the way
Mm-hmm.
environment affects you, and the way people affect you,
Yes.
and the way you view things that subsequently affected the way you behave, and you know the way you behave and um, you know the way you do things, and that becomes your attitude. What do you think about that?
Yep. To me, is generally, attitude is motivation that determines someone's mindset and behavior throughout whatever that they're doing. So to me, that is a truth there. That attitude determines your altitude, which is your achievement in that sense. So again, achievement is also a subjective thing because to a lot of people, achievement means different things. Some
Yeah.
people would put achievements in dollar signs, some people will put achievement in terms of their personal goals,
Mhm.
and some of them will focus more on relationships and family, right? So it really depends on personal intention and motivation, as well as um, you know uh, their approaches to life generally. And to have a positive, or what should I say, I wouldn't say positive, to have better attitude, I would say, right? Whatever we call it, positive or better, it comes with experiences. So as a human being, we are put in this world to learn about an environment through our failures, which are not really failures. They are just lessons that we need to as a springboard to success, right? So that's why it's so important for us to educate the younger generation that failure is just a lesson to keep us moving rather than something that we should beat ourselves down for. And that is something that, yeah, I think that would be the right attitude towards life and goals.
Absolutely, I agree with that, because when we talk about making mistakes, it's like there are societies in this world that do not allow students or people to really make mistakes and fail forward, because if you don't fail forward, you fail to learn the hard lessons of what life is
Mhm.
going to teach you, of what the subject matter is going to teach you. So if you
Right.
fail forward, the problem with this mentality is that it makes you afraid of making mistakes. It makes you afraid of taking risks, and that affects your attitude in a way, because your attitude is going to be that particular mindset itself of failing to try new things and failing to want to experience what it's like to move forward, fail, learn something new, and then move forward again. Like it's the process, it's a journey of moving from one place to another place, each time learning something new. And if you're not doing that, you're stagnant. You're going to stay at where you are, and because of that, you're going to be where you are and remain the way you are for the rest of your life. And the attitude of not moving forward is going to determine how you're going to be in life, which is like total stagnation. And it's somewhat worse than failure. It's like, I would say it's somewhat worse than a failure, because if you don't try, that's the biggest failure that you can ever become.
Yeah, that is actually giving up before you even that is truth, the truth about giving up. And some people say, I failed, that's why that's equate that to failure, to me failing. But the fact is, if you keep on going and move on from that failure and moving forward, it doesn't mean you failed. You never gave up and you never fail from never giving up. And really, failure to me is really, it happens only when someone gives up, and yeah, in whatever they want to pursue in life. So of course, there's another context of letting go, but we're not going there right now. I want to really drill into education system these days that focus more on aptitude rather than attitude, right? Unfortunately, the thing is, when you go to the working world, real world, the first thing that you go for interview, the interviewer will actually look at your attitude, more of your aptitude, because the interviewers or any organizations, they know that if you're someone that is hard to work with, if you're someone that does not have growth mindset, if you're someone that constantly you know um, have lack of self-awareness, perhaps
Mhm.
a lack of ability to do teamwork per se,
Mhm.
then the skills that you have, the knowledge that you have, the talent that you have, which are your aptitude,
It
which
really depends, though. It really
may
depends.
may not show may not be the thing that is very um I would say it may not be something that can score you the job at the very first interview, because it's all about the way that you handle situations.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you're free to
Yeah, I mean, it
to
really depends, because there are some companies who just look at both, like attitude and aptitude, but more towards the aptitude, like how well you do for your past subjects. It really depends on which industry that you are going for.
Mhm.
But of course, if you are looking at I mean, generally how the employers will look at that is the best of both worlds. They want the best of both worlds. They want everything, like,
Of
but I
course.
think it still boils down to how you sell your own resume, how you sell your CV, how
Yeah.
you portray and how you present yourself, and then that's the most important thing that people will get, out of the whole entire process of interview, because an interview does not determine everything. Because
Yes.
from my experience is that an interview will just score you the impression that you're going to give to the other person. And
Mm,
it's something like a first date, it's like the kind of impression that you give to your date, the kind of like exterior that you portray. But at the end of the day, I think the attitude that you're going to give to your work, you're right, because we are talking about whether this person is able to get along, whether this person is able to take certain stresses, or how they perceive the work and how they actually work, and the style of working really matters. But at the end of the day, it's more of suitability. But
of
besides
course.
that, I think what determines the attitude, I mean, the what attitude determines the altitude is going to be, how well your mindset is primed to do things, that would spur you forward, like the simple things like not giving up, simple things like being persistent, showing up, and being presentable, being confident, self-efficacy, having self-efficacy, and so on.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
aptitude is just the ability. It's just the ability and the skill set that you have, which is important because your aptitude is the kind of skill sets you have and hone throughout your years of being on earth, right? So for attitude is another thing. Attitude is like the mindset, the approach, the kind of behavior you have as an individual, and
Yes.
that would put it together with aptitude, and both will work together to determine your altitude.
Well, that's for sure. It is a the best of both worlds definitely will be the best. I mean, in terms of not guaranteeing, but rather get you closer to where you want to be. The thing is, to me, having the aptitude is something very trainable because we have been trained since young, and school systems actually focuses on those. However, on the part where attitude comes in, it's a lot being programmed into us based on our environment and the where we grow up in and then the people that we mix around with, and these are the prime factor that actually determine our attitude when we were young because they mold us to become who we were, right? Until we realize one day we have that kind of self-awareness that, oh, this is not really working for me, and what am I not doing right, and where can I be better? That's when the growth mindset comes in. That's when you try seeking your own purpose and the true motivation, right? In that term, and that's why it's so important to have the right attitude through the real life learnings, which is that's why I'm in social intelligence, because that's the thing that you want to make if one student's attitude or behavior is well managed, at the end of the day, it will show in their skill sets, in terms of their knowledge, in terms of their academic performance. So that's why we focus on a lot more on the attitude, yeah, towards learning. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, pretty much. I totally agree with you. What else do you want to say?
Uh, uh, Nothing much, because to me, we can talk about this forever. But let's look at situations when attitude alone isn't enough. Let's look at the flip side of it,
Mhm,
right?
exactly.
Where of course sometimes um, we have system barriers. Like if you don't have this kind of talent or this kind of knowledge or I would say skills, then of course it's harder for us to go into certain industry, right? Because the industry requires those skills. However, the attitude here is more of a universal thing that is
Mhm.
needed across all industries.
Yeah.
So I would say focusing on the skills is great, as well as throughout focusing all these little things, we build up the right attitude, the right mindset to continue to prosper in our life. Yeah. So, what is your thought about that? Because I think, on the hindsight, there is something that they say, there is some form of toxic positivity,
Yeah.
unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
Let's explore that.
Yeah, and yes, you're totally right about this, because when you're talking about attitude, right? How much is the right attitude right? You know,
Mm,
how right is it for someone to have the right attitude? How do you determine, how do you measure attitude? Because you can't measure motivation, you can't measure attitude as well, because it's a form of like, how far can you go in terms of being too extreme in the form of having good attitude, for example. What's good and what's bad attitude? When someone has bad attitude, what do you think about this person having bad attitude? Similarly, like what do you think of a person with good attitude? How do you perceive that person with good attitude? um, all this got to do with your perception, and it's very subjective, right? So that's the reason why we can't measure that.
yeah.
I mean, on the other hand, when you're talking about toxic positivity, yeah, that's true. Because when you have positive attitude, when you're talking about positivity, everyone at one point in time was talking about, you know, having real positive attitude, and the focus was positivity. Ooh, I can do this. I'm special. Things like that. And what you have is the trophy syndrome. I'm not sure if you've
Mm,
heard of the trophy syndrome. It's like everyone is a winner. If everyone is a winner, no one is a loser. And it only takes one person to realize how much he or she has lost, and that would, wake the person up to a reality that is harsh, but yet it wakes the person up to a reality that, hey, you need to buck up. You need to pick yourself up and move forward and learn from your mistakes. Because if no one is a loser, what other mistakes do you think that you would ever make? I mean, what kind of failure that would that teach you? I mean, would that even teach you about failure? No, not at all, right? Not at all. It's like people will not learn. People will think that they are special all the time, and this is what happens in certain education system, where they tell the kids, oh, it's okay, you have a consolation prize. It's okay, you are special. You can't meet up to the standard. No, it's okay. You are totally fine. There's nothing wrong with you. No, now it's so much about, the complaint about fat shaming, and people are like saying, no, you shouldn't use the word fat. You should use some other, other term. We can't even use the word obese now. So the thing is, we
okay.
use euphemism to replace a particular word in the English language, to make it sound as though nobody is a flaw, that nobody is at fault. Everyone is a winner. Everyone is special. And that creates a kind of attitude that, that tells someone that they are entitled to something. It
Mm,
creates self entitlement. That is toxic positivity.
mm, okay. Well, yeah, you were right about the matter of perspective. So it's very subjective. To me, toxic positivity, it only comes in when it really blur the line between self-awareness with reality. Yeah, there are times that we look through things through rose glasses, right? It means
Yeah.
everything is beautiful. Everything is flowers and butterflies and unicorns and whatnot. So yeah, that becomes something that blur the line between reality and the ideal world that we lived in, so-called ideal world. There comes a time when certain situations happen, certain problems happen, and that's when our greed is tested, where our resilience will be tested, our leadership will be tested, our problem solving skills will be tested. And these are the lifelong learning skills that is part of the attitude. That's why there's a lot of focus now on attitude, because um, I I got to know a few real cases where 20-year-olds are now bringing their parents to interviews with them. So let's talk about that. I mean, what's the perception you're giving to the person that is hiring you? I mean, the hiring manager, right? If you need your mom to be here with you for interview, then do you need to bring your mom along for work? And right now, and also there's statistics showing that lots more Gen Z are quitting their jobs. Um, this is not against Gen Z. This is just statistics saying it, that
Hmm.
because they can't cope with the stress at work. I'm sure because of these statistics, we want to look into what are the root cause. Is it really because they can't be stressed as much as us back in um, as millennials or so forth, or is it because uh, the era has changed so much that nobody can keep up with the kind of workload that we have right now, or is it really an attitude thing that we're looking into?
I'll leave it to some of those who to put the comments in the comment section below.
Yes.
Leave your comments and talk to us and engage with us in regards to with regards to this subject here, because I do not know. To be honest, I don't know. I'm not a Gen Z person, and I probably can make some wild guesses here and there on why they perceive work the way they perceive it. Because for the older generations, I know that work is survival and work is meant for a form of identity, a core identity that one could relate to, that one associate themselves with. Like in the past, when people ask a little kid in the 1980s, what do you want to do? What when you grow up? What do you want to do? And the first thing that they say is, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a scientist, things like that. But people don't say that now. When you ask kids these days, they don't know what to tell you. I mean,
They want to become YouTuber, gamer.
yeah, because the thing is, that is what they want to do versus what they
Yes.
can associate themselves with. Because in the past, people associate their identity with the work that they do, right? And
True.
that makes work who they are. Like what you do becomes a reflection of who you are as a person. But now it's different. Now is that it's what you do. It's the things that you do that is meaningful, that gives you that kind of living and a lifestyle that you're leading,
Mm-hmm.
and that brings some kind of a meaning to your life. And people don't talk about work the way they do right now, because work is just work. Work is just an action, is what you do, is a verb, right? so
Yes.
so it becomes a,
Separated from identity.
yeah, it's like it dissociates. People now dissociate work from who they are. It's like work is work. I just want to do what is meaningful to me. And that's the reason why people don't follow their childhood dream of, oh, I want to be a pilot. No, no, no. No, people don't talk about that anymore. People talk about what they want to do that is meaningful, that will bring and touch more lives, right? That will bring meaning to other people, that will touch more lives, that would change society. And that is what work is about now. It's different,
Mm.
right? It's a mindset, the change of mindset right now, the kind of attitude change, but it's for the better, because work has evolved over the years. And
Right.
because companies and big companies don't have the attitude to change with the times, some of them are still stuck in the 80s and the 90s, having the kind of mindset and the way they do things, it becomes a chore for the later generation, because the later generation just cannot connect. And therefore, they feel disengaged from the previous generation, the way things were done.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's the reason why they dissociate themselves, and you have a disengaged workplace. Full stop. period.
True. And also it's about the parenting has changed. The way we parent our kids,
Yeah.
the way we are being educated are so different in this era versus the era that we were born in. Being caned is a normal thing in school for us in our
Sorry
era.
about that.
And being, even like put alone at home back
Mhm.
then wasn't a problem at all. But now it's considered as child abuse, neglect, and a lot more to it, because of the trauma that we've been through. I don't blame the generation itself because it is things that we have evolved so far. Like for our generation, we have been talking so much about trauma that we had from our childhood back then, due to the parenting back then. Our parents were not told how to parent, so they only parented us based on what they know or what they have experienced when they were younger, and it was brought from generation to generation.
Yep.
And to our generation, what happened was that we didn't want our children to go through what they went through, what we went through, right?
Yeah.
So we changed our way of parenting. And the more we change, the next generation change. So that's why there is this talk about, the generation now is very much more vocal. They're much more self-centric. They're much more entitled, the kind of terms that is being used to label them. And the fact is, because now that I'm dealing with them day in, day out as my
Mm.
students, I
Yeah.
do see that they have all the resources. Now we are no longer living in the era of survival. Now we are living in the era of um, a very resourceful era, yet
Hmm.
they are not happy. They feel the feeling of lack. They feel having suicidal thoughts, or just being depressed is a norm. And that, thanks to social media has a lot to do with it, because these students, or this generation, is exposed to social media day in, day out. And imagine if you kind of watch it like for 2 hours, you're being programmed 2 hours depending on the content that you watch
Hmm.
online. And unless it's being regulated, which I know is very hard for us to really regulate it, because all these kids are so capable technologically, okay, to hack their way in, uh, to watch whatever content they want and to consume them, regardless of whether they are ready for it. Most of these children are consuming content within, I would say they are not mature enough to process those contents.
Hmm.
So therefore, it creates a generation that is confused, that is sometimes, misled, sometimes in a very vulnerable position. And that's why you see more and more young people are taking their own lives, and that's kind of sad. That is the thing that we want to let them be more self-aware at a much more younger age now, not because we want to push them to grow up faster. It's because they are exposed to all this, and they have to understand, they have to make right decisions now, even much more earlier, because um they have access to information the way we didn't have as Gen X or Gen Y, back then.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely, man. That's a whole lot of time shift, and over the past like 30 to 40 years, things have changed so much. And
Yes.
parenting has changed, everything has changed. The question is, are we giving the right values to our younger generation? Are we teaching them the right values? Are we imparting the right kind of values? That is the
Mm,
question, because what creates the self entitlement today and the work culture today is all about the values that we impart over the years, over all the generations that has gone after us, or after
mm,
people before us. whichever whatever it is, that's the question we got to ask ourselves. Are we inculcating the right kind of values, and are
Mm,
those values going to be beneficial for society later on, or is going to be a destructive one that is going to be detrimental to us, to the future generations, and even the economy in the future? We do not know.
mm,
But the values that we hold, the attitude that we have, is not just going to determine the altitude of who you are, of what you are as a person, but it's going to determine future generations. It's going to determine the whole entire world, how things are and how people are in society, in modern society, and even in the digital society.
yes. I think that's, yeah, completely a different topic altogether. Yes, it's on humanities. It's not no longer it's just a personal growth thing.
Yeah,
It's like
I'm thinking big.
humanity as a whole. Yeah,
I'm
as a
thinking big.
whole.
I'm thinking
Are we
universal.
preserving humanity or destroying humanity
Exactly.
with
Exactly.
all this revolution that we're having right now? I really call it revolution because it's really an era of technological revolution, and we don't know
Digital
how far,
revolution.
yeah, and how far we are pressing humanities along the way,
Hmm.
because so far as I can see, it's quite concerning. It's quite the thing about how we're educating our uh, children, as well as the number of the statistics, shown that so many more students or children are now with ADHD, autism, and so forth. So these are the things that, what more if they're exposed to digital contents, right? Being the fact that they are already active, whether they are active kinesthetically or in the mind,
Hmm.
they can't focus and they can't sit still. So imagine that how the workforce is going to be in the future. Now, how do they go into the workforce now, being all over the place, if that's the case? So there must be a better training ground to uh, make each of this group of students to learn differently, and hopefully with all the efforts that we're putting in right now, it's going to give them a way to adapt or to explore the world, at their best in the future.
Great. And just to wrap up, this is what we have talked about so far as regards to attitude determines the attitude of a person,
Mhm.
or rather, the attitude determines the altitude of a person. Ah, it's a tongue twister. Anyway,
Mhm.
we'd like to encourage all of you to actually share your thoughts and stories on our channel. Just go on comment on Spotify and YouTube. Would like to invite you to subscribe to us, give us feedbacks, and suggest some topics for future episodes as well. And of course, we would like to say that this quote is the most famous quote of all times, and it's also the truest quote of all times. And I don't mean that it's a myth, but it's actually very true. But at the same time, it's complex, and it takes a very inspired mind to understand what this quote is all about, because as we have discussed, your attitude determines not just your altitude, but it's everything, including the whole entire world, if you want to think universally. Okay, so
Yeah.
anything else that you want to add, Eunice, before you can just wrap this up?
Yeah, all in it's again, we need the balance. I wouldn't say it's right or wrong, it's myth or not. To me, personally, it's all about the right balance of both. We can't stop the technology from moving forward, and of course, we also don't want the humanities to move backwards. And we as a human collective, we are doing our best to move forward, um, preserving still the values, preserving the attitude, that the right mindset, the right attitude to move towards the better future together. Right. Yeah, that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share your thoughts. Leave us a review. We love to hear from you about your personal experiences and thoughts for sure. All right. Yep. So that's all for tonight. We'll see you next week.
And follow
Have
us on TikTok, please.
Yes. Yeah, that's down here. All right, we'll see you next week. Have a great Saturday and weekend.